Hello and welcome to another episode of Garden to Table with Rose, and I am Rose. So today I am back in the kitchen and I am making another soup. This is going to be a cream of chicken soup. Now this soup does not have any type of starch or filler like noodles or rice or any of that in it. Right now I'm doing kind of a low carb thing, and so I'm not eating pasta at all. I'm not eating wheat at all, and I use rice sparingly. So this is one where you could add obviously noodles, you could add rice to it, whatever you desire. I think though today I will be adding at the end in my individual serving a little bit of brown rice because I have not had any carbs today. So I definitely have room for a few carbs. So now with this recipe, I've never made it before. I searched the internet, I found this on Food Network, and I am doubling the recipe. Usually I like to make soups in big batches because I like to eat soup throughout the week. Sometimes I'll freeze some of it so that it's just on hand. So I want to go through this whole thing of making it again. All right, so let's talk about what you'll need. First, I would recommend you get yourself a cocktail. That's the first thing. So this is an amaretto sour, which is pretty tasty. I'm not really a big fan of amaretto, but this one's really good. It's one of the Bartesian capsule drinks, and I think this is a relatively new variety that they have. The liquor in this is vodka, but it's sweet. It has like a cherry-ish taste in addition to the cherry that I put in it, of course. And you have the amaretto there, but it's not so overpowering. This is pretty sweet, so I filled my glass with ice because it's pretty sweet. Okay, that's step one. Now I'm going to tweak this recipe a little bit just because that's what I do. So for the recipe, basically you're going to need a big pot to cook it in. I have my big pot here, my little induction cooktop, so that you know, I can do this in front of the camera. A half a cup of salted or unsalted butter, I should say. And I am doubling this recipe, but I'm not going to use a whole cup of butter. That would be 2 sticks of butter. So I'm going to use 1 stick, and then I had a couple of tablespoons left over in this package, so I'm going to use 1 stick, 1/2 cup plus 2 tablespoons. But the original recipe calls for 1/2 cup, which would be 4 ounces or 1 stick if your butter comes in 4-ounce sticks of butter. You're also going to need chicken stock or chicken bouillon, chicken broth. So for me, I had made real chicken broth. I don't know when. I made it a little while ago. I had a bunch of chicken bones left over, and then I just made a broth out of it and put it in the refrigerator, which I will often do if I have an excess of chicken bones, like if I'm deboning chicken or whatever the case may be. So I got about, this is a 7-cup container. You need 7 cups. I'm doubling it, so I'm going to need 14 cups. And so to compensate, I made up a little of my better than bouillon chicken base broth. And I think I've mentioned better than bouillon before. I really like it if you don't actually have broth or stock. It's a really good substitute. It comes in these little glass jars, and I can't tell you how much it is, maybe $7 or something, $6-7 for this little jar, but they have different varieties. They have chicken, vegetable, beef, and then they even have low sodium varieties, I believe. But this is like a concentrated chicken paste, so you can add as much water as you want or as little as you want, depending on how chickeny you want it to be. So I like using that. So that's what I'm using. They want you to use 1 medium onion, whatever kind you want. I am not using 2 onions. I'm doubling this, remember. I'm just using one because I have found that I'm pretty sensitive to the taste of onions. Like onions easily overpower dishes for me, even though I like them. So I tend to cut back on the onion whenever a recipe calls for it. It also calls for 3 carrots. I have 6 carrots, and I'm using carrots that I harvested from my garden. Actually, everything, all the vegetables I'm using are from my garden except for the bay leaves. I only had dried bay leaves, but you would need 3 carrots. I'm using 6 carrots. You're also going to need a half a cup of heavy cream, whipping cream. Of course, I'm going to use a cup because I'm doubling it. You're going to need some sherry, just a little bit for flavoring, 2.5 teaspoons. So for me, that's going to be a tablespoon and a teaspoon or something like that. I don't buy sherry, and I'm not going to buy it just for one recipe, so I always buy marsala though. I usually get sweet and dry, so I'm going to use this dry marsala as my flavoring. But if you have sherry, you should definitely use it. You're going to need some parsley, fresh parsley. You're going to need some fresh thyme. I have curly parsley from my garden. You can use flat, curly, whatever you have. I have some lemon thyme, which smells really good. It actually smells lemony, but it's lemon thyme, so I got some of that from my garden. And you're gonna need celery. How much celery? 2 stalks with the leaves, so I'm using 4-ish. I'm using all of this though because I have it, I need to use it up, so I'm gonna use all of that. And then you're going to need a couple of bay leaves. I always double bay leaves because these dry ones don't seem to have much flavor to me, so I always just use twice as many. Now you're going to tie the herbs up into a little bouquet, as they call it, herb bouquet, like a little package with string. And then you're going to, I think, put that in the broth to cook, so that you can then take that out after. So keep that in mind. And I'm also adding zucchini to mine just because I always, well, at least during the season here, the summer season, I always have zucchini in the refrigerator. I'm at the last of my summer zucchini, so I got about 6 of them left in there, and they're big. But I keep it kind of cubed up also in a bowl so that I can throw it in a stir fry or a soup or whatever I'm making. So that I'm going to throw that in mine. It'll add some filler to it since I'm not using any kind of pasta or anything. And then I just got a little string here, kitchen string, to tie up my herbs. And it also calls for flour. Now they want you to use how much flour? 1/2 cup plus 1 tablespoon of flour for a single batch. Now I'm not using flour because I'm not doing wheat right now. So instead, what I am using is arrowroot powder, which is a thickener. It's, you know, people use it who are obviously don't do gluten, but also, you know, paleo, stuff like that, low carb, people tend to use it as a thickener. So that's what I'm using. And if you're using arrowroot, I believe the equivalency is 1 teaspoon of arrowroot powder per 1 tablespoon of flour. So you'd use less of this. And so I added that up, measured it in here, which is a little bit over 1/3 cup. So I'm gonna use that, see how it turns out. If it's not thick enough, I could add something else to thicken it, which I probably won't. If it's too thick, I can always thin it out with a little bit of water or something like that. You're gonna need 2 3/4 cup of chopped chicken, cooked diced chicken. I doubled that, of course, so I probably got, I don't know, I probably have a little bit more, 6 cups maybe. Because I just used all that I had left, and I had a lot of it left because I roasted 2 whole chickens and I only ate like 1 piece of it, so I had a lot of that. And I think that is it. So let me get my little burner here going. Make sure this other camera's on. Okay. So, and also, you know, get your carrots diced up, chopped up as small as you want them in a soup, and get your onion all chopped up. You always, for the most part, want to have everything prepped before you start cooking. It just makes the cooking go a lot faster. It makes your recipe go faster. It's less confusing. Mise en place, this is called, meaning have everything in its place. So everything is good to go. I haven't chopped the celery though. So while this is heating up, want me to melt the butter in here, then add the onion and celery. I gotta chop this onion really quick. Now you also, I gotta chop the celery really quick. You also are gonna need a little salt and pepper, of course, for your seasoning, but that's really it. It's a pretty simple recipe, it seems. Let's hope it's tasty as well. So, get that going. And let me move this out of the way. I didn't want to have any mishaps. All right, let me get to chopping here. I am not going to chop it that fine. It's gonna cook down, especially the leaves. And I just sharpened this knife, so seems like to me it should be a little bit sharper than what it is. I don't know if I'll use all of this. Check my butter. Butter can burn pretty easily, so you don't want to leave your butter unattended. I don't know, maybe I don't know if I need a new knife. This is a Chicago cutlery. It wasn't super expensive, but this has been my favorite chef's knife. It's just the weight of it. It's pretty lightweight, so your hands don't feel fatigued or anything. And of course, the blade goes all the way through the end, and you can sharpen it. So I've had this knife for years, but for whatever reason, I don't know, it's seeming like it's awful dull, and I literally just sharpened it before I started this video. All right, so the butter is melted. You're gonna throw in your onion and your celery. And I'm not gonna use all of that. I don't know that I want to, because this is a lot. I might just use this amount that I have. I keep looking at this camera trying to make sure it didn't cut off or something in the midst. My main camera that I use is a Fujifilm X-S10. Anyway, it was pretty expensive to me, because I'm not used to spending a lot for stuff like cameras, but the thing cuts off the video after so many minutes. It's like it automatically cuts off after 20 minutes or something like that. And I don't know if one can change that, but I've been making many a video and I've had the thing just cut off and me not know it's off, because the only way I can tell it's off is by staring at this tiny red light that's flashing on the screen. And well, that's a weird piece. Oh, I ended up putting some thyme in there. And my vision isn't that great. The camera is several feet away from me. All right, so you basically want to cook this till it's kind of wilted down, soft, like you usually would do whenever you're sauteing some onions for a recipe. So it says 12 minutes. That's a while. Then you're going to add the flour. And I may fast forward this for you so you don't have to stand here and watch me for 12 minutes. But after it's softened and wilted down, after your 12 minutes, you don't want it too brown. You're making a cream of soup. I love any creamy soup, to be honest with you. But with the soup, I would not want the vegetables too brown. I would just want them transparent, a little translucent, and kind of cooked down. But yeah, you don't really want them brown. So keep your eye on it, and like I said, butter butter gets dark and can burn really easily because it has dairy solids in there, so be careful with that. So while that's cooking, let me get my little bundle together. Let's see, they want me to bundle the parsley, thyme, and bay leaf together. So how much parsley? I don't think it matters. I think you can wing it. It says 3 sprigs of parsley, 3 sprigs of fresh thyme, and 1 bay leaf. Well, I'm gonna use more than that because I'm doubling my recipe, but also, I mean, look how much I have here. This is craziness. And I probably still have a lot of it in my garden. And then you also want to save some of that parsley for a garnish, you know. So here's what I do. Well, first I should cut my twine. That will make it easier. Cut yourself a length of string. And then you kind of want to fold this parsley up on itself. Add your bay leaves in there. I'm just sandwiching it all. And I'm not even measuring according to them. I'm just doing what I think is right. But I told you the measurements, and the recipe will be in the comment section, so don't worry. And then my thyme. You know, also, you know, fresh herbs only last so long. And I don't know that I'm going to be doing a lot more cooking where I'm going to need thyme and a lot of parsley, so I kind of want to use as much of it as I can so it doesn't go to waste. I mean, I could always dry it, but I got so many dried herbs. I mean, oh gosh, I'm just kind of running out of space. So, you know, wrap your string around there a few times and then tie it. You're going to take this out when it's when your soup is done. So you want, you know, you want a nice tight bundle so that the whole thing comes out when you try to take it out, and hopefully nothing gets left behind. So the onions, it's like they're starting to wilt down, man. I got my chicken here. My chicken, I've already diced it up. So this is what I mean when you have all of your ingredients prepped and ready to go and in your bowls or whatever, your recipe goes fast. If you got to stop and chop and do all of that for each step, I mean, it just seems like it can take twice as long as it needs to. And you run the risk of overcooking something or burning something if you're busy chopping or doing one thing while you're supposed to be sauteing something over here. You know what I mean? So I would recommend, one, you should always read through a recipe. If it's one you haven't cooked before, you should always read through the whole recipe, including the steps, not just the ingredients list. So you kind of get an idea of how it's supposed to go. That's what I always do. And then, like I said, I will prep my ingredients usually and have them sitting and ready to go. So that's looking good. I'm gonna let it go a couple more minutes so I can take a couple more sips of my drink. This is good. And I put these are Luxardo cherries. I'm telling you, it's like the best maraschino cherry I have ever had. They're from Italy. They're delicious. They also make a cherry liqueur, a maraschino cherry liqueur. And I have some of that too. I just really haven't found a recipe that I wanted to use it in yet. I'm gonna move forward. So once you've cooked this for about 12 minutes or so and everything's nice and wilted down, you know what? I forgot to add the carrots. Uh-oh. I'm supposed to add the carrots with that. Sorry. Forgot all about that, and actually I should probably add my zucchini too. I forgot all about the carrots. Okay, so let me turn this up a little. I'm actually gonna add my zucchini too, because I don't just want it boiled. And I don't know how much zucchini this is. I got a little container here. It's probably about 3 cups of chopped. And it's gonna add filler for me, so I don't need any kind of noodle or pasta or anything like that in it. So it works for me. I'm not saying that you need to add zucchini. That's just something I put in it because I have a lot of zucchini. So let me give this a couple more minutes now that I've actually added the carrots. And then I am sure this is going to simmer for some time after you make your roux and add your liquid. And so that'll give time for the carrots and everything to soften. So I'm not too worried about it. Okay, so after you cook this for 12 minutes, you're gonna add your flour, or in my case, my arrowroot powder. You wanna cook that a little bit before adding liquid. Anytime you're adding flour, and I think I've said this before, anytime you're adding flour to a dish in order to make some kind of thickened sauce or gravy or anything like that, you wanna cook the flour a little bit. And depending on the recipe, some things you don't want your sauce to be a dark color. Like this is a cream of chicken soup. So my assumption is that it should be a pale kind of beige color, right? And so I wouldn't cook the flour too long because you don't want it to turn dark. The darker it gets, the darker your resulting sauce is going to be. If you were making something like gravy, good old-fashioned gravy, then you would cook your flour a little bit longer till it's a nice golden brown, because the color of the flour is going to be an indicator of the color of your sauce at the end of the day. Is what I found. But you definitely want to cook it some, because otherwise it's going to taste raw. It's going to taste like a raw flour, like a doughy kind of taste if you don't cook it a little bit. So I would recommend always sauteing that flour in there with your oil, whatever oil and whatever other vegetables or you happen to have in there. So I'm gonna add it now. Don't need to waste any more time. So I'm gonna sprinkle this over here, and I'm going to saute this a little bit. And then after I do that for a little bit, I'm going to slowly add in my broth, which I would think would be the next step. just from having made soups, that seems like a reasonable next step. But even with the arrowroots, I still want that to cook a little bit and not taste raw. All right, let's see. So add the flour, cook stirring with your spoon for 2 more minutes, which we are doing now. So let's start with this one. All right, starting with my refrigerated broth. So my camera's still going. Let me set up a little bit higher. And it was time I used this broth as well, so this soup was a great idea, because this broth has been in the refrigerator for at least a week. I'm sure. Okay, get the rest in there. Uh-oh, my poor little pot is getting full. I think this is an 8-quart pot that I'm using. But like I said, I've doubled everything, so I'm kind of making a lot. Give this a stir. A lot of soup here. And like I said, I will probably freeze a portion of it so I can have it on hand the next time I'm craving some chicken soup. I'll just pull the container out of the freezer and voila. Instead of having to make it each time. I do cook a lot, but not every day, you know. I like to do cook-ups think I've mentioned that before in other videos, but I tend to like to do a weekly cook up. So I tend to cook a bunch of stuff on the weekend and just put it in in containers with lids, and then just mix and match proteins and sides and that kind of thing over the week. It gives me variety when I can mix and match. I like leftovers, but I don't like eating the same meal, as I've said before, every day. So if I can have it every other day or every third day, then I'm okay with that. So all right, so it looks good so far. So I got everything in here. I'm kind of waiting for it to reach another boil. Reach a boil, I should say. Let me get it turned all the way up, as high as it goes. So once this boils, I'm gonna add these herbs. I'm gonna cover it. I will pause the video then and kind of come back when it's time to add our chicken, because the chicken, it seems, is added at the very end, which is kind of why you want to make sure your chicken is cooked. You're adding cooked chicken to this, not raw chicken. So the boiling of this is going to give the flavors a chance to meld, obviously give the vegetables time to cook down, give the carrots time to soften, which is important. We're going to pretend that this is boiling. It's not quite there yet, but we got to get this show on the road. So I just have my little herb bundle here, and I'm going to stick that down in there. And then, actually, I'm going to put the lid on this because that will help it to come up to a boil quicker. I have it as high as this little convection range will go. I mean, it's hot, but it's not reaching that boiling point that we want. So I'm going to now take a break. The soup is here. I'm gonna let it get up to a boil and then turn it down so it's simmering. I'm gonna leave that for, what is it, about 15 minutes. You know, you want to test it though. You want to come and grab one of those pieces of carrot out, because that's the longest cooking item in there, right? Get a piece out and taste it and make sure it's tender enough, because the last thing you want is to put this whole thing together and then your veggies are crunchy, your carrots are still crunchy. So that's usually how I do it. Usually before I do the final steps, I will taste the longest cooking veggie and make sure that's tender to my liking before I do the rest. So I shall be back once it is time to add our final ingredients, which is really just the chicken, the cream, the cherry, and then season it with a little salt and pepper if you think you need additional seasoning. All right, so I am going to go finish this cocktail in the meantime while I'm waiting, and I'll be back in a couple of minutes, okay? Bye-bye. All right, I am back. And now I will tell you, it took longer than 15 minutes for the carrots to get tender. It was more like 25 minutes in my soup. And you know, I did make a double batch, but at the same time, it's still carrots boiling in a broth. So, and mine were diced pretty small. So it still took me about 25 minutes before my carrots were tender. The recipe said 15 minutes. I was 25, and I diced mine pretty small. Okay, so the carrots are tender. My broth has thickened up a bit. Now mine has a little bit of translucency to it. You know, it's a little bit see-through, and that's because I used arrowroot. I did not use flour. If you use flour, obviously it should be pretty opaque. That's okay though. I'm gonna, you know, we're adding cream to this, so that's gonna make it opaque at the end of the day. So let's put all our chicken. Now you're using 2 3/4 cup of diced cooked chicken. I am doubling that and adding some because I just had extra chicken. So I've probably got about 6 cups here that I'm going to add to this. Turn it up. And then what I want is for this chicken and this whole mixture to kind of reach a boil again, or a simmer. And then I'm gonna add the rest of my ingredients, the last of my ingredients. And while I'm at it, I can take out this herb bouquet that we put in. You know, your little bundle that you put in, find it. And you know, another thing you can do with this, I mean, I'm used to touching hot stuff, so for me, it's no big deal to kind of reach in there and grab it. But another thing you can do is you can cut a long enough string where you can maybe hang it over the side of the pot or tie it to the handle if you're concerned about having to dig in there. Use tongs, you know, you could do that too, which will work. Okay, so now I want this to kind of come back to a little bit of a simmer before I add my final ingredients. It's very hearty, it's very thick, and if my other camera does what it's supposed to do over here, I should be able to put some pictures of, you know, actual close-up of what's going on in this pot. Because what's going on in this pot is what it's all about. So, now I'm gonna let this get to a simmer. It says to take it off the heat after that. I probably will just put mine on low. Then I'm going to add my cream. You need a 1/2 cup of heavy cream. I've doubled mine, so I'm going to use a whole cup. And then you need like a 1.5 teaspoons of sherry. I'm going to use a dash of the dry marsala. And then, of course, you want to taste it and season it with salt and pepper to your liking. And then after all that's done, you're ready to serve it. Now, I'm going to serve mine over a little bit of brown rice because I haven't had any carbs today, and so I need a certain amount of carbs each day. I try to stay under 100 grams a day. That's just my goal for right now, because I am doing a lower carb diet, a whole foods diet, no sugar, no wheat, no pasta, no pizza, my favorite food. No, a lot of things that are not good for you. It's working though, honestly. In the last, I've been doing this for about a month. I'm going to do it through September. It just kind of, for me, it's a reset, gets me back on the track of eating the way I'm supposed to eat. But in the last month, I have lost approximately 10 pounds in the last month. So, and that's a combination of cutting down and out a lot of the carbs, and also just being very mindful of my portion size. If anybody who knows me well can tell you, I eat like a man. I mean, I like my food, especially my meat. And I like big portions, big plates. And it's not even that it's garbage food, it's not junk food, it's good food, but I just like to eat a lot. So my biggest challenge always is not so much what I eat, but how much. And so regardless of how much working out you do, exercising, etc., you still need to consider how many calories you're taking in. Bottom line is, if you take in more calories than you burn, you're gonna gain weight, period, end of story. So I have really been working diligently on portion size, and also not eating until I'm stuffed. Like, I like to feel full when I eat. I like to feel like, oh, I feel full. And really, in order to lose weight, you can't go there, because feeling full means that you're taking in the amount of calories that you're used to taking in, which would keep you at the same weight or either cause you to gain weight. And so I have been mindful in trying to stop eating when I feel satisfied, and that's a big difference. There's a big difference from feeling full versus, okay, I'm no longer hungry, so the hunger has been satisfied. and that's tricky. So that's what I've been focused on mostly. Also reducing alcohol intake, because that's empty calories. Although you just saw me have a cocktail, I really don't drink as often as I used to. I've cut back a lot on that simply because it's empty calories. I mean, I definitely enjoy cocktails. I enjoy wine, you know, all that good stuff, but everything in moderation. That's how it works. All right, so now we're back up to a simmer. So I'm going to turn it down to low. I'm not going to turn it all the way off. Now, hopefully I'll be able to put the close up here and you can see this and you can kind of see how thick my broth got. It's pretty thick. Now keep in mind, whenever you do a soup that is pretty thick, a stew, a chili, a thickened soup, when you refrigerate it, it's going to congeal and get even more solid. And so it's okay if you have a little extra liquid in it when you first make it, because it's going to get thicker. I find that typically when I do these kinds of soups, I have to add a little water when I reheat to have more broth, because otherwise it's like a stew as opposed to a soup. So I got my 1 cup of cream I'm going to add, which makes it all better. I love creamy soups. I think I said that already, but like cream of any vegetable, cream of anything. I can eat cream of asparagus, cream of celery, and I have literally made all these. Cream of whatever, cream of spinach, cream of broccoli. I will eat it because I'm just a sucker for creamy dishes. All right. So, and then I'm not gonna measure this. It says how much? 2.5 teaspoons. I would double that, so that's 5 teaspoons, but I'm just gonna throw a dash in and call it a day. Also gonna put some pepper, because none of this has pepper. It has plenty of salt in the in your broth and all of that, so you actually may not need to add any salt. I would taste it first, but there's no pepper that was added, so a little bit of black pepper. You could use white pepper if you want to keep it pristine, and you know, because your broth is pretty beige, you know, so a lot of times people will like to add white pepper because it doesn't change the color in terms of having those specks in it. Okay, all right, let me taste it. I'm just gonna taste the broth. All right, broth. Oh, that's good. That's really good. I think I would like a little bit of salt, just because it seems like all the carrots is adding a bit of sweetness. I mean, I didn't put that much Marcella, and that's a dry Marcella, so it's not that. It just seems like the carrots are adding more sweetness than I kind of would like. And this is a huge pot. Like I said, this is an 8-quart pot, and I don't know, it's about 3/4 of the way full. So I will probably freeze half of this and then take it out and defrost it when I decide I need a chicken creamy soup. I also, I will eat soup for any meal. I am not the kind of person where you have to have eggs for breakfast, or you have to have certain things for certain meals. To me, that's crazy and unnecessary. I eat whatever I feel like eating. So a lot of times I will actually have soup for breakfast, especially when I do pureed soups, which I do a lot, because I can drink that out of a mug. It's like drinking a cup of coffee or something like that, you know. So let's try it now that I've added a little salt. Woo, that's good. That's really good. And I'm not just saying that because I made it. I mean, I've never made this recipe before, and it is good. It's customizable. Let me turn this off because it's making a little bit of noise. It's customizable. So like I said, you could add pasta, noodles, you could add rice, you can kind of do whatever you want with it. It's a nice foundational recipe. So what I am going to do is scoop this over some brown rice, which I've already cooked in my rice cooker, and I have some in the bottom of my cup. And like I said, this is because I need carbs. I haven't had any today. And probably routinely, I would probably eat this with nothing added to it. It has enough veggies that it's really full. It's really dense. It's enough. You know, I got the zucchini in there that I added extra. You can add whatever you want. And we can talk about garnishes. For me, I am going to garnish it with parsley just because that's what the original recipe called for. Now, I would say that you could garnish this with just about anything. You could garnish it with thyme, since that was used in the recipe. You could use an oil, a flavored oil. Given that it has a kind of beige, creamy color, any kind of oil that had a color to it would be pretty, drizzled on it. Like the chili oils, which I always go back to the chili oil just because I have so much of it. But chili oil would be good on it. Pistachio oil is another one that's like green in color. Also avocado oil. And these are all unrefined oils. Don't get refined oils. If you can, get raw cold pressed, unrefined oils. So you could drizzle an oil on here. You can garnish it with whichever herb you want. You could even do cheese, like a Parmesan cheese sprinkled on there would be good. I'm going to do parsley because that's what the recipe called for. And I got a ton of parsley. So let me... You could do green onion. That would be another good one. Okay, so I'm gonna garnish this with a bit of parsley. Woo. Awesome. Now, let's see if I can show a close up. Let's see. Oy. Okay. Look, huge soup mug I have here. These are gigantic, and these are great. They have these nice little lids. So you could even, you know, do individual servings and cover it and put it in the refrigerator and reheat it. This is the ceramic stuff that's freezer proof, oven proof, microwave proof. So it's very pretty. That's what I got going on there. And it's really hot. I want to taste it. Of course, you got to do the taste test. But it's hot. I'm gonna burn my mouth. But let me try. Just a little bit. It's steaming. It's smoking. Smoking. Gotta take a second taste to be sure. You know how I am. Got to be certain. Certain. Oh man, that's so good. Okay, it's like creamy, and you get the chicken broth, and it's not heavy. I didn't add as much butter as they recommended in the recipe. I did not use white flour. I used arrowroot, which is a lot. I know it's not as dense, so that adds a lightness to it. Of course, I added extra veggies, including the zucchini. And in this particular cup, I added some brown rice at the bottom, which is great because when that brown rice mixes with all the other ingredients in the broth, you get this chewy. Brown rice has a chewy kind of bite to it. It stays firm. So you get that in addition to all the, you know, softened vegetables that have been cooked. So this is fantastic, and like I said, all the produce except for the bay leaves came from my own garden, so that makes me happy, and I'm pretty proud of that. And it's a quick meal, you know, especially if you have things prepped in your refrigerator. I tend to do a lot of prep just in general of veggies when I get them, in terms of cleaning them and maybe dicing them up or chopping them up and putting them in containers and having them in the refrigerator, so I'm good to go. So this is fantastic. I would definitely make it again. And that's all I got. I mean, like I said, you can mix and match this as with most soups, however you want. So you can serve it with some crusty bread on the side or garlic bread or whatever you want to serve with it. Of course, I'm not eating bread right now, so that won't be happening, unfortunately. But it is definitely a keeper. So I recommend it wholeheartedly, and I will post either the recipe or a link to the recipe, if I can do that, in the comment section or the description section of the video post. And so thank you for joining me for this new recipe. And if you haven't already, click that thumbs up, like button, click the little yellow subscribe box that you see on your screen. That will subscribe you to my channel so that you just get alerts when I have a new video come out. It'll come up in your feed, and that should be once a week, every Wednesday. So I hope to see you next Wednesday. In the meantime, be well and take care of yourself. Bye bye.